This is Omnivore Presents SciDish, a podcast from the Institute of Food Technologists. In each episode, we take a deeper dive into a single topic shaping the future of food. Hosted by the editors of Food Technology, together with IFT members and subject matter experts, SciDish brings you the science, insights, and real-world perspectives that drive innovation, solve complex challenges, and connect disciplines across the global food system. Thanks for joining us. Let's get into the conversation.
This episode of Omnivore is brought to you by IFT membership. To the innovators, the connectors, the changemakers, the future leaders, IFT is your professional home, a global community shaping the future of food. Explore the benefits of membership at ift.org/join.
Welcome to the Omnivore Presents SciDish podcast, where we offer a deeper dive into the science, trends, challenges, and innovations shaping our food system. I'm your host, Julie Larson-Brisher, Food Technology Magazine's Science and Technology Editor, and today we're diving into a topic that's one of the toughest challenges in food and beverage development: how to make products as nutritious as possible without sacrificing the flavors, textures, and aromas that consumers crave. As shoppers demand better-for-you options, they're also unwilling to compromise on enjoyment, making the balance between health and sensory appeal more critical than ever. In this episode, we're joined by three leading food and nutrition scientists who will dive into the science, innovation, and strategies that can help bridge that gap. Let's meet our guests. Our first guest is Dr. Kirstie Canene-Adams, a nutrition scientist whose career bridges academic research and innovative industry leadership. Kirstie is currently the director of the Nutrition Center within Global Scientific and Regulatory Affairs at Ingredion. Welcome, Kirstie.
Thank you so much for having me.
We're also happy to welcome Angela Cauley, co-founder and executive director of the George Washington Carver Food Research Institute, a nonprofit dedicated to providing a holistic approach to health, wellness, and financial prosperity for underserved people around the world through food research and service-based agricultural education. Welcome, Angela.
Hi, Julie. Thanks for having me.
And rounding out our guest panel today, we've got Dr. Lisa Sanders, a registered dietitian and owner and principal scientist at Cornerstone Nutrition, LLC, who is a consulting nutrition scientist for IFT. Her expertise is in the translation of nutrition evidence to support science-based communications for multiple audiences, including scientists, health professionals, and consumers. Welcome, Lisa.
Thank you, Julie. It's great to be here.
All right, well, it's wonderful to have all three of you here, so let's just get into it. The first question I'd like to put up for discussion is on the topic of consumer expectations. How do consumer preferences for taste, texture, and appearance influence the way food scientists approach product development or reformulation for better-for-you health outcomes? So let's start with you, Lisa.
Sure. Taste, texture, and appearance are always the first thing that a food scientist is going to think about when approaching product development or reformulation of a product. Because you can design the healthiest food in the world, but if people won't eat it, it doesn't matter. So when you're developing a new product, a lot of times it's easier because you can start from a blank slate, but reformulation can be really tricky because consumers already have an expectation of what that food is supposed to taste like. And so that's why a lot of times food scientists will take gradual changes slowly over time, like reducing sugar or sodium slowly so it is less noticeable and may give consumers time to adjust without rejecting the product. But consumer preferences are always top of mind, and they're tested throughout the whole product development process. So from the very beginning of a concept all the way through till the final food, the consumer is always being asked about their expectations around taste, texture, and appearance.
Yeah, I see you nodding, Kirstie. What do you think of that?
I very much agree that texture and taste are very important to consumers, and there's some really great research being done in the Netherlands right now on how texture impacts everything from satiety to eating pace, cultural preferences, and overall consumer satisfaction with the product. There's some new research that they're coming out that a crunchier food may take more chewing, which can slow down your eating rate and give our bodies more time to register fullness, which can impact how much calories people are consuming. So texture and taste are crucial for product developers to consider when developing healthier products.
Yeah, how much of this healthy food doesn't taste good stigma, how much of that is based on perception, and how is the industry working to change that narrative?
I can jump in, and one thing I would say is that I think it's a mixture of perception and reality. So many healthy foods taste great. I mean, there's fruits and yogurts and fish and whole grain breads that I think taste wonderful, but there are also less healthy options that offer an immediate sensory appeal, and people will think it tastes better. So the comparison between a less healthy option and a healthy option may make the food seem less exciting. But the good news is, I mean, I think the industry has done a great job making real progress in changing that narrative. A great example is dietary fiber. So everybody used to think dietary fiber in a food, it's going to taste like cardboard. And so now there are so many different fibers available that can be added to foods without really changing the taste and the texture as much. And that's really, I think, helping to make healthier choices more enjoyable for people.
So while we're talking about balancing health and enjoyment, let's pivot a little. I'm going to throw it out here to Angela. What do you think are the biggest scientific challenges in creating foods that are both nutrient dense and enjoyable to eat?
I think that's a great question. I think one of the biggest challenges is being able to find that balance between optimizing just the flavor, the sensory attributes that you're going to get with just nutrient stability, bioavailability, food safety ramifications, as well as cost. Because everybody wants to have something that's going to be better for you, right? But it comes at a cost. So whether or not that cost is, if I'm adding vitamin premixes or something to it, the cost might be that you're going to negatively affect the flavor, right? You're going to have like that metallic taste. So the cost is going to be, how do we mask that? How do we actually create different ingredients? Where are we encapsulating it? Are we using maskers? And it's ultimately going to drive up that cost that's going to go to our consumers, right? So I think it's really important to be able to look at what are those tools that we have at our disposal. It's also understanding, what is your price point? So are we developing a product that's going to be more of a Pinto? And I'm aging myself in saying Pinto, but that was a car that was around when I was a child, a Lexus, or do we want a Bentley? So there's all of these beautiful tools that we have at our disposal to be able to utilize to create magic, right, in these products. But if the cost doesn't make sense for the consumer, it's not going to translate, then we have to kind of recreate something else and think about how we're doing it.
I really agree with Angela. Price is a large factor, and as you add more nutrients, whole food ingredients, the price can go up. So we in the food industry need to ensure that we are making healthy foods at multiple different price points, and novel ingredients, upcycled ingredients can be ways to efficiently process foods into healthier formulas and ultimately increase nutrient density for our consumers.
Yeah, do you guys have a couple examples of that would illustrate these challenges and maybe some advances that we're making in making the food taste better, but adding some functionality to it, some better for you attribute, through maybe some newer takes on ingredients or how we process them?
I think looking at the fermentation process is really, really exciting because you can develop complex flavors, you can get health benefits, you can get increased proteins, you can get prebiotics, probiotics, just through nature and biology, right? and controlled environments. So I think it's exciting looking at fermentation and how that particular process can be used, but also looking at cellular technology. So you think about different companies who are literally creating fish just from cells, right? And at first I was kind of like, well, that's interesting. Is that something I would really want to do? And then you think about fish that's actually grown in natural environments and just the impact of everything that's going on with adulteration of foods that are grown, in the ocean, or whether they're in, on fish farms, and the issue around food safety. So if you could actually get a product where you're getting the attributes that you want through science, through the cellular technology to create like a perfect food replicated every single time, there's a benefit to that.
You're definitely right that consumers are expecting more health benefits out of their products while still maintaining the flavors that they love. And there are some new technologies and newer research coming out on soluble and insoluble fibers. Lisa had mentioned the importance of fiber earlier on. And resistant starches are an area Ingredion is doing more research on to understand how we can use these resistant starches from corn and tapioca, peas, to reduce calorie levels in foods, maintain healthy body compositions with fat and protein balance and muscle, and also have benefits on healthy blood lipid levels and even around type 2 diabetes. So there's definitely benefits of resistant starches. There's other soluble fibers that have a host of benefits as well that can have prebiotic benefits and fuel the healthy gut microbiota. And those are really important, I think, to increase those health benefits systemically in the body.
But Julie, I think that we also should empower consumers to be able to take a product and actually make it their own. So if we give them, a base product that actually will impart a health benefit, and then give it to them in a neutral way so that when they take it into their kitchen, they can utilize things from their garden, they can utilize things from local farmers markets to also impact health benefits. So how do we use our kitchens creatively to take this bar or item that actually has a prebiotic fiber in it, and then now we're adding fresh berries, we might add fresh herbs, we might utilize it in a way where we're like using cooking techniques to develop different flavors. So I don't think that the health benefit actually has to come directly always just from the food company itself, but allowing the consumer to be creative and make those cultural links. How do we create foods using spices and different flavors that really connect to us in our cultures to create nostalgia and add health benefits in our kitchen?
Yeah, and just to build on this, we've talked a lot about different like ingredients and foods that you can use, but even from the technology side, there's been some really exciting advances in technology that I've been very impressed with you're not really adding anything to the food. It's just a process that enables the food to be more healthy. One of the things I'm thinking of is the ultrafiltration of milk and yogurts that's enabled us to have Greek yogurt that's higher in protein, as well as the milks that we have now that are higher in protein, lower in sugar, and they're stable for longer. So you can keep them in your fridge for longer. That's less waste. Less cost to the consumer because they don't have to throw that away. I mean, these are some really exciting processing advantages. High pressure processing is another that you can preserve the nutrients that might be destroyed through the heating process. With the high pressure processing, you can preserve some of those nutrients in beverages, for example. So even in addition to ingredients, there's interesting processing technologies that are helping to make better for you foods.
Yeah, and I think based on what I'm hearing here, it also reminds me of Angela's running these really fantastic. I think it's Explore STEAM Academy. They're like camps, 10-day camps, and high school students are participating and being educated from that sort of egg to all the way through the processing and packaging and pricing, right, Angela? But one of the things that she does in that is have a contest where they are using an actual developing product, using some functional ingredient. I think the one I know more intimately is ashwagandha, for example. So trying to get to that better for you, thing. But the thing is that ashwagandha, I'm not sure that it has a taste or texture challenge to it. I mean, you can correct me if I'm wrong here, Angela.
So thank you for that. So our students in our Explore Extreme Academy, they were tasked with actually taking cornbread and reimagining it and making it healthier for their target consumer, which happened to be a 50-plus-year-old woman. And so in thinking about what can we do, we can add ashwagandha for that brain acuity. Women my age, it's nice to actually have that imparted. But then we also added protein and omega-3 and 6 fatty acids too. And when these are children who are teenagers and they're really kind of coming up with all of these different ideas. And when you're feeding something to a teen, they will let you know really quickly whether it's something that really lands with them or resonates, whether they're going to eat it or they're not going to eat it. But they were able to create these wonderful products utilizing all these wonderful ingredients to create value-added products that really resonated with women in that particular demographic. So you are 100% correct, Julie. I think one of the other things that we can do more of is talk to teenagers and kind of get their insights and understand just how they think. They are incredibly creative. They're thinking about problem solving, not just for themselves, but for their parents and their grandparents. They see that things can be changed. They're smart enough and creative enough to come up with different ideas and things that we can really learn from in addition to AI.
Well, and I was thinking you were saying, so remind me, what were the three challenges that the three teams were given, and what was the product outcome? Because something Kirstie said to me, I want to follow up on with her, but I think this is a great starting point.
Yeah. So one team was challenged with actually making the cornbread actually more nutritious for a 50-plus-year-old woman. The other team had to create a different flavor system. So how do we create something that's going to be craveable for a person and different, that is going to make them want to go to the shelf and pick this up compared to other things? And then another company, or we call them companies because they consisted of groups of individuals that were exploring different career pathways. And so the last team had to reimagine cornbread altogether. And instead of turning it into a cornbread mix, upscale it into something that's going to be more value added. So they developed a cornbread waffle and they infused pot liquor sauce into it, which is really that delicious savory flavor that you get at the end once you eat all of your collard greens. They infused that into the waffle and actually served that with the chicken wings. So it was a play off that cultural spin of chicken and waffles. And they actually won. So it was appealing to people at different levels. So whether it was a cultural perspective from the flavor, whether it was making it healthier, for the consumer, or changing it to something that was going to be something that really connected with them from a cultural perspective, that is what they did. And if they can do that as teenagers, Julie, we absolutely, as scientists, can come up with ways to make things not just delicious, not just nutritious, but absolutely craveable and an enjoyable experience to eat.
We'll be back with more SciDish in a moment. But first, a quick message from our sponsor.
To the curious, to the bold, to the ones shaping the future of food, IFT is where you belong. As a member, you'll enjoy a global community united by purpose, driven by science, and ready to make a lasting impact on our food system. Connect with peers, thought leaders, and trusted experts. Stay on top of cutting-edge research and take your innovations and career further. You belong here. Become a member today at ift.org/join.
And now, back to SciDish.
And so just to pick up on what Kirstie was saying earlier about what reminded me of that contest was that you had focused specifically on giving each one of them had to incorporate ashwagandha into their solutions, each company, right? Mm-hmm. And but as Kirstie said earlier, there are so many like sensory attributes from the texture, the mouthfeel, color probably, and flavor is obviously usually primary. Those sorts of things they can marry more easily maybe nowadays with a better for you component, I guess, like ashwagandha. So are there some exciting, sort of ingredients that are being utilized with some sort of better for you benefit, but are actually adding to that taste and enjoyment, the flavor profile, the texture of, that sort of thing. And I guess that's what I'm thinking. Are there innovations that are specific in that area where we are helping to give more nutrient density to a product in some way, or some better for you, food as medicine even type of benefit, in addition to really getting that flavor, that new innovative, that really appeals to the customer,
One thing I keep coming back to is something Angela said earlier is this idea of fermented foods and the flavors that they bring. I think we're going to see some more sort of that return to the traditional ways of making food, but in a more, I guess, a more scientific way, really knowing the cultures that are there in the fermented foods, knowing the metabolites that are made that could be benefiting health in those fermented foods. Speaking to what you're talking about with the sensory attributes, I've seen a lot more interest, even from young people, in fermented foods and the unique flavors that they can bring. And they may also be bringing health benefits. I think we need more science on that. But fermented foods, we've been eating them for centuries. So I'm interested to see where that goes in the future.
Right. Well, and and like Kirstie was saying, chickpeas and all the sort of plant-based stuff. I think as consumers, and I put myself in consumer shoes at the moment, I'm looking for those. I'm looking now for chickpea flour, or that they put a mung bean in. I mean, I think our palates have also kind of changed with our desires a little bit, and where people might have in the past, thought, oh, that's not tasting as good as, bleached white flour or whatever. It's now tasting, great. And in fact, I'm going to turn to you again, Kirstie, and ask you, can you share some examples of ingredients or technologies that help maintain or even enhance flavor and texture, while at the same time maybe reducing sugar, salt, or fat, or otherwise boost some aspect of health, like immunity or inflammation reduction or cognitive improvement, for example?
Stevia is actually a great example of an ingredient that can help reduce sugar. And the first iterations weren't as great tasting, the first versions, and consumers responded, and the industry has responded in kind and come up with some of those bioconverted and fermented varieties to get the specific compound in stevia that has the ideal flavor for sweetening without some of the tasting side effects that others people don't prefer. So stevia is a great example of how we can reduce sugar, and iterations of it over time can actually be improved. And it doesn't have the blood glucose response or the blood insulin response that standard sugar does. So those are some great benefits there. There's also some proteins, specifically a pea protein that has some sustainability aspects, as well as benefits around maintaining muscle mass, that are also on the market today and in some wonderful products here in the United States.
Yeah. And I'm also interested in mushrooms. Like I've seen a lot of people, begin to use mushrooms in different ways because you can get a lot of nutrients, you can get protein, you can get flavor. It's just an amazing ingredient, and it comes in many different forms. So I'm really happy to see more people actually exploring just what are those health benefits, and enjoying mushrooms.
There has been a lot more science on mushrooms coming out, and the vitamin D or the prebiotic benefits that the fibers have.
Yeah.
I agree. Some great data coming out on mushrooms.
And not only that, but I've also seen where just even for women, some of the issues that we have with our female parts can be addressed through mushroom technology as well. So.
Yeah, I like the texture that it adds to foods. I feel like it's so versatile as an ingredient, and it's a superfood. I mean, it's got so many health benefits to mushrooms that we've known about for a long time.
Yeah. And it's coming in many different forms. So like you're seeing it in powders, you're seeing people drink it like with coffee, you see people utilizing it in burgers and different textures and things to formulate with. So again, I'm all about using whole foods as much as possible and actually seeing the benefits of minimally processed foods that we can use.
Well, last question, everybody. I'd like to ask each of you to look into your science-based crystal balls and tell us what scientific or technological breakthroughs you think will most transform the way we design healthier, tastier foods in the future. Lisa, I'm going to start with you.
Okay. I can think of a few areas that I think will potentially shape the future. One, I think, will be some gentler processing technologies. So, for example, some of the things I've already talked about, but ways we can reduce microbial risks while still extending shelf life, but with less heat or chemicals. And so we can preserve more of the natural or the nutrients that are naturally there and the flavors and the colors so that the healthier food will taste closer to the fresh. I think I've already mentioned a return to more traditional methods like fermentation, but with more of a scientific lens. Another piece of it is the gut microbiome is another frontier. There's a lot still that we have to learn there, but I think as that health area progresses, we will learn more from the food perspective about what types of fibers or polyphenols or other types of compounds in the foods that we eat interact with our gut bacteria and what that could potentially mean for our health. So I think that has a lot of potential to change how we design foods. And I think something that has been around, but it is not going away, is just this shift towards just simpler foods, minimally processed, like Angela said, clean label, shorter ingredient lists. Consumers are getting very skeptical of things that are overly processed. And so how do we deliver the nutrients that people need safely in a shelf-stable way with fewer ingredients and transparent processes? So I think that's going to continue to shape how we design foods into the future.
What do you think, Kirstie?
I actually have two ideas on technological breakthroughs that will help with healthier, tastier food development. The first is around upcycled ingredients and how we can use waste streams or byproducts to really create enjoyable eating experiences with nutrition, health, wellness benefits, while also having cleaner label and sustainable ingredients. So upcycling, I think, is going to be really important in the coming years. And then the second is around personalized nutrition or precision nutrition and how we'll get more insights around microbiome or metabolomics and be able to guide people to more information on what they might need more. What nutrients do they need more? What micronutrients, macronutrients, bioactives? What is the ideal fiber for their gut microbiome? I'm hoping we get more insights in the coming years as we get cheaper and faster and more technological advances with wearables and in more personalized insights on how we eat.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
And Angela?
Yes, so I agree with what both Lisa and Kirstie mentioned, but I would like to add to that education component. So we have all these beautiful tools and techniques to be able to create these superfoods and super ingredients that we can incorporate into our toolkits when we're formulating, but also that education component. So when we think about food as medicine, making sure that we're translating this information that we have, all this wonderful research that's being done to our medical professionals as well as the consumer, so that they're eating when they actually get a result, they can say, okay, let me go and actually utilize this particular product. They actually might be able to utilize smart packaging that has QR codes that will give you additional information on the ingredients that are actually being beneficial inside of the product itself, or creating avenues for ways to utilize the products through utilizing recipes for people to try so that they can, again, customize that and make it their own in their own kitchen. And again, going to more natural ingredients so that when we're seeing different products on the market being taken away, like your colors and things, how do we utilize technology from, natural sources like rosemary extractives to be able to extend the shelf life and preserve flavors and preserve colors when we're formulating? So just looking at all the unique ingredients that are coming out, making sure that we're educating people. And again, that precision nutrition is amazing, being able to eat specifically for your own personal benefit and outcome, I think is the way to go.
Yeah, I'm all about that. I've already made like pre-New Year's resolutions based on how personalized I can get my nutrition right now. And it's a glorious thing when you actually feel your body responding to the nutrients that you're putting into it. And I think, and maybe I'm telling my age now, but it's become more important to me the older I get, and it really makes a huge difference. That and hydration, ladies, hydration.
Well, Julie, and just to be transparent here, maybe 2 or 3 years ago, I was at the doctor and I actually got some results from my cholesterol, and it was high. And as a food scientist, I was a little bit embarrassed. Like, how are my numbers this high? Like, what can I do as a scientist in my own kitchen to utilize functional ingredients and make substitutions so that I'm eating for my own success? And I actually changed to a plant-based diet, or I should say plant-forward diet. So probably 90% of the foods that I prepare in my own kitchen come from plants. So plant-based proteins, fruits and vegetables, healthy whole grains. And I've managed to get everything in alignment. So I'm eating to live for myself. And it's creating not only health benefits for me, but I'm also seeing it in my family. So if you saw my husband, you've met my husband, Ian, before. He's absolutely beautiful and handsome because he works out, but he's also eating well in my kitchen because I use that as a way to build health in our family.
Well, Lisa, Kirstie, Angela, it has been a fantastic discussion. I really appreciate that you were sharing your insights with our SciDish listeners today. And I will be, I'm sure, in touch with you at some point to maybe get some more tips on my own personalized nutrition journey.
And don't forget yoga, Julie. I owe you yoga.
Yeah. I'm in.
Thank you so much for having us today.
Thank you to this episode's sponsor, IFT Membership. To the scientists, students, collaborators, innovators, and leaders shaping the future of food, you belong here. IFT is your community for trusted knowledge, lifelong learning, and meaningful experiences and connections. Join us today at ift.org/join.
And that concludes this episode of Omnivore Presents SciDish. Thanks again to our guests for another amazing discussion. SciDish is produced by the Institute of Food Technologists and the editors of Food Technology magazine. To learn more about IFT and how we convene global food system professionals to advance the science of food, visit ift.org. If you're not already a member, head to ift.org/membership to find your place in the IFT community. For more insights, ideas, and innovation, check out our sister podcast, Omnivore, on the News and Publications page of ift.org. Join us again next month for another timely discussion. This is Omnivore Presents SciDish.